The blue glow of the laptop screen cast shadows across Louise Knight's kitchen at 3:17 a.m. She'd given up on sleep 2 hours ago, when the nightmare came again, the one where Nathan was calling her name from somewhere she couldn't reach. 6 years gone, and her husband's voice still woke her in the dark. But tonight, it wasn't grief that kept her awake. Louise scrolled through the spreadsheet, her reading glasses sliding down her nose. Column after column of numbers, dates, amounts. Her fingers hovered over the total at the bottom of the screen, refusing to click the cell that would sum it all up. Some truths, once revealed, couldn't be unseen. Beside the laptop sat a photograph in a silver frame. Nathan on their 30th anniversary, his arm around her waist, both of them laughing at something long forgotten. He'd been 58 in that photo, the same age she was now. The same age he'd been when the aneurysm took him on an ordinary Tuesday morning while he was reading the newspaper. What would you tell me to do? She thought, studying his face. But Nathan had always been better at fixing broken things than navigating the complicated terrain of their son's life. Louise closed the laptop and pressed her palms against her eyes. Today, technically, she had to make a decision. But first, she needed to understand how she'd gotten here. The automatic transfer went through on the first of every month like clockwork. $2,000 from Louise Knight's checking account to Stephen and Angela Knight's joint account. It had been that way for 3 years, ever since Stephen casually mentioned over Sunday dinner that the new house was stretching them a bit thin. "Just until we get established," he'd said, glancing at Angela, who'd nodded with that grateful smile Louise had learned to recognize. "Maybe 6 months?" 6 months had become 36. Louise stood at her kitchen counter on a humid June morning reviewing her own bills. Mortgage, $800. Property taxes, $425 monthly escrow. Groceries, utilities, car insurance. The prescription for her blood pressure medication that seemed to cost more every time she refilled it. And then there were the extras. Her phone buzzed. A text from Angela. "Louise, Tyler's baseball registration is due Friday. They raised it to 350s this year. Ridiculous. Could you help us out?" Louise's thumbs hovered over the keyboard. Tyler was 8, bright-eyed, gap-toothed, obsessed with the Cleveland Guardians. She'd taken him to a game last month, just the two of them, and he'd talked about batting averages the entire drive home. "Of course," she typed. "I'll Venmo it today. You're the best. Tyler will be so excited. Love you." Louise set down the phone and opened her checkbook. Baseball registration, added to the $2,000, brought this month's total to $2,350. Last month it had been Mia's dance recital costume, $200. The month before, Angela's car repair, $800. "It's what family does," Louise said aloud to her empty kitchen. "It's what Nathan would have wanted." He'd worked 40 years at the steel plant, saving every bonus, every bit of overtime, so they could be comfortable. So she could be comfortable after he was gone. She sealed the check in an envelope and tried not to think about the retirement account statement she'd received last week, the one showing a balance lower than it had been 2 years ago. Sunday dinner at Stephen and Angela's house had become ritual. Louise arrived at 4:30 p.m., arms loaded with grocery bags, the good steaks from the butcher on Mayfield Road, fresh green beans from the farmer's market, the ingredients for Nathan's famous twice-baked potatoes. "Mom, you didn't have to do all this," Stephen said, taking the bags from her. But his smile was distracted, his eyes already drifting toward the basement door where she could hear the muted sounds of a baseball game on TV. "It's no trouble," Louise said, which was true. Cooking for her family was one of the few times she felt useful anymore. Angela breezed into the kitchen wearing yoga pants and an expensive-looking athleisure top that Louise didn't recognize. "Louise, perfect timing. I'm just back from Soul Cycle." She air-kissed near Louise's cheek. "Do you mind if I shower quick? I'm disgusting." "Go ahead, honey. I'll get started on dinner." By the time Angela returned, hair wet and smelling of expensive shampoo, Louise had the potatoes in the oven and the steaks seasoned. She was snapping green beans at the sink when she noticed the new espresso machine on the counter, gleaming chrome and digital displays, the kind she'd seen at Williams-Sonoma with a $200 price tag. "That's new," Louise said, keeping her voice light. Angela followed her gaze. "Oh, yeah, Stephen surprised me for our anniversary. Isn't it gorgeous? I'm totally obsessed." Their anniversary had been 3 weeks ago. The same week Angela had texted about needing help with Mia's dental bill. Louise smiled and went back to the green beans. Dinner itself was pleasant enough. Tyler chattered about baseball. Mia showed Louise a drawing of a princess with a crown that extended off the top of the page. Stephen scrolled through his phone between bites, offering occasional nods at the conversation. Angela spent most of the meal photographing her plate from different angles. "The lighting in here is terrible," she muttered, tilting her phone. "Louise, could you move that candle closer?" At 7:30, Louise started clearing plates. Angela's phone rang, a friend inviting her to a wine tasting next week. She wandered into the living room, her laughter floating back into the kitchen. Stephen helped carry dishes to the sink, then paused. "Mom, you okay? You seem quiet. Louise looked at her son, 35 years old, still with that cowlick on the left side that never laid flat. She'd kissed that cowlick when he was small enough to scoop into her arms. She'd walked him to kindergarten and taught him to tie his shoes and sat in the emergency room when he broke his wrist at Little League. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just tired." He squeezed her shoulder. "You work too hard. You should relax more." Then he was gone, back downstairs to his game, leaving Louise alone with the dishes and the remains of the meal she'd bought and cooked and would clean up from, in the house her monthly checks helped pay for. She was loading the dishwasher when she found it. A receipt, crumpled in the pocket of a jacket hanging on the back of a kitchen chair. Nordstrom. Date. 3 days ago. Amount. $847. Louise smoothed the receipt against the counter. "Designer handbag," it read. "Plus tax." Her hands were shaking as she folded it and slipped it back into the pocket. Louise's 58th birthday fell on a Tuesday in late August. She woke that morning to silence. No calls, no texts. That was fine. People were busy. Stephen and Angela both worked. The kids had school. By noon, still nothing. Louise cleaned the house, made herself a salad for lunch, tried not to watch her phone. At 2 p.m., she called her sister Barbara, who lived in Akron with her husband and 2 sons. "Happy birthday to me," Louise sang, trying to make it sound like a joke. "Oh, shit," Barbara said. "Shit, Louise, I'm sorry. I had it on my calendar and everything. Work has been insane. Let me take you to dinner this weekend, okay? We'll go to that Italian place you like." "It's fine, Barb, really." "Has Stephen called?" Louise looked at her phone. "Not yet. I'm sure he will." But 5 p.m. came and went, then 7, then 9. At 9:43, her phone buzzed. A text from Stephen. "Sorry, Mom, crazy day. Love you." Louise stared at the cake emoji. She typed and deleted 3 different responses before settling on, "Thank you, sweetheart. Love you too." The next Sunday at dinner, neither Stephen nor Angela mentioned her birthday. Louise waited for them to bring it up, to apologize for forgetting, to produce a belated card or gift. But they asked her to pass the salt and discussed plans for Labor Day weekend and showed her photos from Mia's dance class, and the birthday never came up. Louise went home that night and cried in Nathan's old armchair, the one she'd kept because it still smelled faintly of his aftershave, even after 6 years. Early November brought the lawyer's letter. Louise found it mixed in with the grocery store circulars and credit card offers, a thick cream envelope from Thornton & Associates, James Thornton's elegant script on the return address. "Dear Mrs. Knight, I hope this letter finds you well. As you may recall, we last updated your will and estate documents in 2019, shortly after Nathan's passing. Given that it's been 6 years, I wanted to reach out regarding a review and potential update of these documents." Louise set the letter on Nathan's old desk in the spare bedroom, his office, though she still thought of it that way even though he'd been gone longer than he'd used it. The current will was simple, everything to Stephen as their only child. The house, the retirement accounts, the life insurance payout she'd carefully preserved. She should update it. She knew she should. But something made her hesitate. Louise pulled out the file drawer where she'd always kept household records. Nathan had taught her to track everything, every expense, every receipt, every bank statement. Paper trail, he used to say. You never know when you'll need to prove something. She found what she was looking for, a manila folder labeled Stephen Assistance. She'd started it 3 years ago, meaning to track things for tax purposes, though she'd never actually used the information for anything. Louise opened the folder and began to read. An hour later, her hands were shaking. 3 years of meticulously recorded transfers, gifts, emergency loans. She'd written them all down, dated and categorized, the way Nathan had taught her, but she'd never added them up, never seen the full picture. Louise pulled out a calculator and started at the beginning. Monthly transfers. $2,000 is 36 months, equals $72,000. Down payment help on their house. $25,000. Emergency assistance. Itemized. $67,000. Angela's car repair. $800. Tyler's medical bills. $3,200. Furnace replacement. $6,500. Stephen's work laptop. $2,100. The list went on and on. Gifts, birthdays, Christmas, grandchildren. $35,000. The calculator display read $109,000. Louise set down the calculator and walked to the bathroom. She knelt by the toilet, certain she was going to be sick. But nothing came except dry heaves and the terrible realization that she'd given her son nearly $200,000 in 3 years. Nearly everything Nathan had left her. Thanksgiving exploded the illusion entirely. I'd love to host this year, Louise said during their usual Sunday dinner in early November. I haven't had everyone at the house since, well, in a long time. I could do the turkey and Angela. Maybe you could bring those sweet potatoes you make? Angela and Stephen exchanged a look, the kind of wordless communication that couples develop, that Louise and Nathan had once shared. Oh, Angela said, her smile bright and regretful in equal measure. We're actually doing Friendsgiving this year. It's this whole thing. Sarah and Brad are hosting, and it's couples only. Very casual. Friendsgiving? Louise repeated. It's become a thing, Stephen said, not meeting her eyes. We didn't think you'd mind. It's just the 1 year. You could come to that, Angela started, then caught herself. Actually, it is couples focused, but we'll definitely see you Friday. We could do leftovers? Louise felt something crack inside her chest. Something small but significant, like the first thin line appearing in a windshield. That sounds nice, she heard herself say. Friday morning, Angela texted, Louise, we're so sorry, but we're completely wiped from last night. Rain check on today? We'll make it up to you. Louise spent Thanksgiving Friday eating a turkey sandwich in front of the TV, watching the Detroit Lions play to an empty living room. I want everyone at my house for Christmas, Louise said on the first Sunday in December. She'd rehearsed this, planned it. I'll handle everything. You don't have to cook or bring anything. I just want us all together. Stephen's jaw tightened. Mom, let me check with Angela about the schedule. Of course, just let me know so I can plan. 3 days passed. 4, 5. Louise sent a follow-up text. Hi, sweetheart, just checking about Christmas plans. 2 more days. Then Stephen called. Actually called, which made Louise's heart lift until she heard his tone. Mom, Angela and I talked, and we think it would be better to just keep it to our little family this year. You know, establish traditions with the kids. Keep it simple. The crack in Louise's chest widened. I could come Christmas morning, just for an hour to watch them open presents. Mom, Stephen sighed. Can you hold on a second? She heard muffled voices. Then he was back. Angela's going to text you, okay? I have to go. Love you. He hung up before she could respond. The text came through 5 minutes later, but it wasn't from Angela's phone. It was from Stephen's. Louise recognized the number, and the message, when she opened it, was in Angela's voice. Louise, we need space. You're always hovering, always expecting us to include you in everything. We need family time, our family. The kids need routine, not constant disruptions. Please don't make this harder than it is. Don't come over unannounced anymore. We'll reach out when we're ready." Louise read it 3 times, then 4. Then she called Barbara. "What did I do?" Louise asked when her sister picked up. "Barb, what did I do wrong?" "What happened?" Louise read her the text, her voice breaking on the word hovering. Barbara was quiet for a long moment. "Lou, I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to really think about it." "Okay. When's the last time they did something for you? When's the last time you asked them for help and they showed up?" Louise opened her mouth to answer and found she couldn't. "When's the last time they called just to check on you? Not to ask for money or help? Just to see how you were doing?" "They're busy," Louise whispered. "They have jobs and kids and—" "When's the last time you asked them for something?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Louise thought back through months, years. Every interaction had followed the same pattern. They needed, she gave. They asked, she provided. They expected, she delivered. "I can't remember," she said finally. "Exactly," Barbara said, her voice gentle but firm. "Lou, you've been so busy being what they need that you forgot to let them be what you need. And now they don't know how. Worse, they don't think they have to." After they hung up, Louise sat in the dark living room, Nathan's photograph watching her from the mantel. The Christmas tree they used to put up together remained in its box in the basement. The stockings she'd hand-stitched with their names, Nathan, Louise, Stephen, stayed folded in the closet. Stephen still full of the small gifts she'd been collecting since October. At 11 p.m., Louise made a decision. She opened her laptop and logged into her bank account, found the automatic transfer screen, and with 3 clicks, her hand steadier than she expected, canceled the monthly payment to Stephen and Angela. Then she opened a new text message. "I won't be sending the December payment. We need to talk about this arrangement." She hit send before she could second-guess herself. The response came in 7 minutes. 7 minutes when they hadn't replied to her Christmas question in over a week. "What? Why? Mom, the mortgage is due the 15th. We're counting on that money." Louise stared at the words. Counting on that money. Not "we're concerned about you." Not "is everything okay?" We're counting on that money. She set down the phone and didn't reply. Sleep didn't come that night. Louise lay in bed, her mind racing through every decision that had led her here. At 3 a.m., she gave up and went to the kitchen. The laptop was still on the table. Louise opened it and created a new spreadsheet, this one more detailed than the folder of receipts. She categorized everything. Monthly transfers, 36 months, X $2,000, equals $72,000, major expenses, house down payment, $25,000, furnace replacement, $6,500, Angela's car repair, $4,200. There had been 3, she realized now. Tyler's medical emergency, $3,200. Work laptop for Stephen, $2,100. Mia's dental work, 1-800 gifts and extras. Christmas, 3 years, averaging $4,000 a year, $12,000. Birthdays, $8,000. Tyler's baseball fees, equipment, tournament travel, $6,000. Mia's dance classes, costumes, recital tickets, $5,500. Emergency grocery runs Angela requested, $3,200. School supplies, field trips, class parties, 2,800 restaurants and entertainment. Sunday dinners she bought groceries for, $11,700, 153 Sundays, ex average $78. Taking grandkids to movies, games, zoo, $4,900. Louise stared at the total, $168,800, but she wasn't done. She opened another browser tab and searched her email for Venmo and PayPal. Found another $18,000 in electronic transfers she hadn't tracked. Adjusted total, $186,800. She'd given Stephen and Angela nearly $200,000 in 3 years. The life insurance payout from Nathan had been $225,000. Louise closed the laptop and walked to the living room window. Dawn was breaking over Cleveland, pale winter light turning the snow-covered lawn gray and silver. Somewhere in this same city, Stephen and Angela were sleeping in their 4-bedroom house. Tyler and Mia were dreaming in their decorated bedrooms. Angela's designer handbags sat in her closet. Stephen's golf clubs leaned in the garage. And Louise's retirement account had dwindled to a quarter of what Nathan had left her. "What would you tell me to do?" she asked Nathan's ghost again. But this time, she thought she knew the answer. The week between Christmas and New Year's passed in a strange, suspended quiet. Louise's phone remained silent except for 2 texts from Barbara checking in and one from Reverend Hayes at church asking if she'd be at the watch night service. She didn't tell Barbara about the spreadsheet. Didn't tell anyone. Instead, she moved through the days with the careful deliberation of someone defusing a bomb, slow, steady, waiting for the explosion she knew was coming. It arrived at 10 a.m. on New Year's Day. Louise was sitting at her kitchen table with coffee and the Sunday crossword when she heard the car doors slam in her driveway. 2 cars. She looked up to see Stephen's Accord and Angela's white SUV parked side by side, engines ticking in the cold. Her son emerged first, wearing the cashmere coat she'd bought him last Christmas. Angela followed, her face already arranged in an expression Louise had learned to recognize over 3 years of carefully orchestrated conversations. Contrite, fragile, perfectly calibrated for maximum emotional impact. The doorbell rang. Louise set down her coffee, smoothed her sweater, and opened the door. "Mom," Stephen's voice cracked on the word. "Can we come in? Please, we need to talk." Louise stepped aside. They filed into her living room, the same living room where Nathan had taught Stephen to play chess, where they'd opened Christmas presents, where Louise had sat alone eating leftover turkey on Thanksgiving while they celebrated Friendsgiving with people who mattered more. "I'll make coffee," Louise said. "Mom, don't. Just sit, please." They arranged themselves on the sofa, Stephen and Angela side by side, hands clasped, a united front. Louise took Nathan's chair across from them and waited. Angela spoke first. Her eyes were already red, mascara slightly smudged in a way that looked authentic. "Louise, I owe you such a huge apology. That text, God, I don't even know what I was thinking. I was so stressed and hormonal, and I lashed out at the person who's been nothing but generous to us." "Hormonal?" Louise repeated. Angela's hand moved to her stomach, a gesture so theatrical Louise almost missed what came next. "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Stephen's face lit up with what looked like genuine joy. "We found out 2 weeks ago. We wanted to tell you at Christmas, Mom. That's why Angela was so stressed about the holiday. She wanted everything to be perfect for the announcement. And then when you suggested coming over, she panicked because we hadn't planned it yet, and..." He ran out of breath. "We're having another baby." Angela pulled a pregnancy test from her purse. Digital, clear as day. Pregnant, 2-3 weeks. Louise looked at the test, at Angela's hand on her stomach, at Stephen's hopeful, desperate expression. Something in her chest, that crack that had started at Thanksgiving, split wider. "Congratulations," she heard herself say. "That's wonderful news." Angela's relief was visible. "We're so excited. Scared, obviously. Financially, things are tight, but excited. And we want you to be part of this, Louise. We want our kids to know their Nana." The word Nana landed like a punch. Stephen leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Mom, I need to be honest with you about something. I should have told you earlier, but I was too proud." He took a breath. "My position at work is being eliminated. They're restructuring the whole department. I have severance through March, and I've got some interviews lined up, but right now..." He spread his hands. "It's scary." Louise studied her son's face. She'd known this face for 35 years. She'd kissed his skinned knees and wiped his tears and watched him graduate college. She knew when he was lying. Had known since he was 6 years old and blamed the neighbor's dog for the broken lamp. His left eye twitched. Just once. The same tell he'd had since childhood. "That's terrible," Louise said quietly. "I'm sorry, Stephen." "We're not asking for charity," Angela cut in quickly. We need help getting through the next few months. Just until Stephen's new job starts and we're on our feet. With the baby coming, we can't afford to fall behind on the mortgage." "How much?" Louise asked. They exchanged a glance. Stephen answered, "We're about 5,000 behind on bills. If we could get caught up and maybe continue with the monthly help through March, just 3 more months, we'd be okay." Louise did the math silently. 5,000 plus 3 months at 2,000, $11,000. "I'd need to see the severance paperwork," she said. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "What?" Stephen's voice sharpened. "The severance paperwork. If you're being laid off, there would be documentation. I'd like to see it before I make any financial commitments." "Mom, it's confidential. I can't just—" "Then I can't help you." Angela stood abruptly. "This is ridiculous. We come here, apologize, try to rebuild our relationship, share our pregnancy news, and you're treating us like criminals?" "I'm treating you like adults," Louise said, her voice steady. "Adults who are asking for a significant amount of money. I'm asking for documentation." "That's reasonable." Stephen stood too. "Mom, we're your family. You're supposed to trust us." "Family goes both ways, Stephen." "What's that supposed to mean?" Louise looked at her son, really looked at him. At the designer watch on his wrist that she knew cost $800 because she'd seen the Instagram post Angela tagged him in. At the cashmere coat. At Angela's Tiffany bracelet catching the winter light through the window. "It means," Louise said carefully, "that I've given you nearly $200,000 in 3 years. And I'm asking myself why, if you're so financially desperate, Angela bought an $847 handbag from Nordstrom 3 weeks ago." Silence crashed into the room like a wave. Angela's face went white, then red. "You went through our things?" "I found a receipt in a jacket pocket. While I was cleaning up after the dinner I bought and cooked." "So you're spying on us now?" Angela's voice rose. "Going through our pockets like we're children?" "I'm trying to understand," Louise said, and her voice didn't shake. "How you can ask me for money while buying luxury items. How Stephen can claim poverty while posting golf course check-ins on Facebook. How a pregnancy you supposedly wanted to announce at Christmas became a weapon to manipulate me on New Year's Day." Stephen's face crumbled. For a moment, Louise thought he might cry. Instead, he laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "You want to know the truth, Mom? Fine. Yes, we need money. Yes, we've made some bad purchases. But we're not criminals. We're people trying to live our lives without having to justify every decision to you. I'm not asking you to justify your life. I'm asking you to stop treating me like an ATM." "An ATM?" Angela's voice turned vicious. "You mean like the grandmother who buys her way into her grandchildren's lives? Like the woman who has nothing else to offer except money, so she uses it to make herself feel needed?" The words hit Louise like a slap. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. "Get out," she whispered. "What?" "Get out of my house." Stephen grabbed his coat. "Fine, but don't expect us to come running when you need help someday. Don't expect us to take care of you when you're sick and alone in some nursing home. Don't expect us to care." "I wouldn't dream of it," Louise said. "You've made it clear our relationship is transactional. No money, no family. I understand perfectly." Angela stopped at the door, her final card to play. "The kids will forget you, you know. Tyler already asks why Nana doesn't love him anymore. In a few years, you'll just be some old lady they barely remember. Is that what you want?" Louise felt the words pierce her heart, felt them find their target with surgical precision, but she kept her face neutral. "If that happens," she said quietly, "then I'll know I raised a son who taught his children that love is conditional on money. And that will tell me everything I need to know." They left. The door slammed hard enough to rattle the wedding photo on the mantel. Louise stood in her living room, her heart hammering, adrenaline flooding her system. Part of her wanted to run after them, to apologize, to fix it. Instead, she walked to the kitchen, picked up her phone, and texted James Thornton. "I need to update my will, and I need to do it soon." The next morning, Louise did something she hadn't done in 3 years. She drove past Stephen and Angela's house. Not to visit, not to confront, just to see. She parked down the street at 7 a.m. when Stephen would normally be leaving for work. At 7:15, the garage door opened. Stephen emerged in sweatpants and a t-shirt, retrieved the newspaper from the driveway, and went back inside. No suit, no briefcase, no job to get to. Louise sat in her car for another hour. At 8:30, Angela came out with Tyler and Mia, loading them into the SUV for school. She was wearing the same expensive athleisure outfit from months ago, talking animatedly on her phone, laughing. Not the behavior of someone in financial crisis. Not the stress of someone whose husband had just been laid off. Louise drove home and called the main number for Stephen's company, a software firm downtown. When the receptionist answered, Louise took a breath. "Good morning. I'm calling to confirm the mailing address for Stephen Knight. I'm sending a gift basket and want to make sure it arrives." "Oh, how nice. Let me transfer you to his office." The phone rang. Once. Twice. Stephen Knight. Louise hung up, her hands shaking. He'd lied. He hadn't been laid off. He was at work right now. Or at least his office phone was forwarding to his cell. She sat at her kitchen table, staring at the phone, her mind racing. If he'd lied about the layoff, what else had he lied about? The pregnancy. Louise opened her laptop and searched. Angela Knight Facebook. The profile was public. Angela overshared everything. Louise scrolled back through posts, looking for what? She wasn't sure. Then she found it. A post from 8 months ago. "So grateful for my amazing doctor. 2 kids is perfect for our family. Feeling empowered and happy with my decision. Hashtag tubes ligation, hashtag 2, eyes nuff, hashtag child free." The comments were filled with congratulations, with other women sharing their own experiences. Angela had gotten her tubes tied. Louise's phone rang, startling her. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Mrs. Knight?" A man's voice, young, uncertain. "Yes?" "This is Marcus Brennan. I'm Stephen's friend. We went to college together." Louise knew the name. Stephen mentioned Marcus occasionally, his best friend, the one he played poker with on Friday nights. "What can I do for you, Marcus?" God, this is so awkward. Can we meet for coffee? There's something you need to know about Stephen, and I can't tell you over the phone." They met at a Starbucks on the east side, halfway between their neighborhoods. Marcus was 36, thin, with the anxious energy of someone who'd been keeping a secret too long. "I don't know if I'm doing the right thing," he said, stirring sugar into his coffee for the 3rd time. "But Stephen asked me to lie to you, and I can't. I won't do that." "Lie about what?" Marcus took a breath. "If you called asking about him, he told me to say he'd been laid off. He said you were being unreasonable about money, that you'd cut him off, and he needed me to back up his story." Louise's coffee turned to acid in her stomach. "Marcus, what's really going on with Stephen?" The young man's eyes filled with tears. "Mrs. Knight, Stephen has a gambling problem. A bad one." The world tilted. "He started about 2 years ago. Sports betting mostly, football, basketball, then online poker. He kept saying he could stop, that he was just having bad luck, that one big win would fix everything." Marcus pulled out his phone, scrolled, turned it toward Louise. "These are texts he sent me over the last 6 months." Louise read, "Dude, I need $500 just till Friday. I swear I'll pay you back. Marcus, please. I'm in deep. $2,000. I know I owe you from before, but this is different. They're going to come to my house. Angela doesn't know. Please, I can't borrow from my mom again. She's asking questions. Can you cover me?" There were dozens more. Louise handed the phone back, unable to read any more. "How much has he lost?" "I don't know exactly, but based on what he's asked me for, what I know he's borrowed from other friends. Mrs. Knight, I think it's over 40,000 in the last year alone." 40,000. The number lodged in Louise's brain like a bullet. Does Angela know? She knows he gambles. She thinks it's under control, like a few hundred here and there. She doesn't know about the debts. Stephen's been... Marcus hesitated. "I think he's been using your money to cover his losses, to keep Angela from finding out how bad it is." Louise thought about the monthly transfers, the emergency requests, the constant need for just a little more, just this one time. Why are you telling me this? Because he asked me to help him trick you. And because, Marcus's voice broke, because I care about Stephen. We've been friends since we were 18. But he needs help, real help, and as long as everyone's enabling him, he'll never get it. I tried to talk to him about Gamblers Anonymous. He told me to mind my own business. After Marcus left, Louise sat in her car in the parking lot and let herself cry. Not delicate tears. Huge, body-shaking sobs that left her gasping. She cried for the son she thought she knew, for the money she'd poured into a gambling addiction, for the lies, the manipulation, the fake pregnancy, for the grandchildren being used as weapons. When the tears finally stopped, Louise wiped her face, reapplied her lipstick in the rearview mirror, and drove to James Thornton's office. I need to protect myself legally, Louise said, sitting across from the attorney who'd handled Nathan's estate. And I need to do it today. James Thornton listened as she laid out everything, the spreadsheets, the lies, Marcus's revelation, the fake pregnancy, the manipulation. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Louise, what Stephen and Angela are doing, legally speaking, it could be classified as financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. I'm not vulnerable. You're a widow. You're isolated. They've created a pattern of dependency and used emotional manipulation to access your funds. In Ohio, that's a criminal offense. Louise felt her stomach turn. I don't want to press charges against my son. I'm not suggesting you do, but I want you to understand the gravity of this situation. They're not going to stop. When people are this deep in addiction and financial desperation, they escalate. What do you recommend? James pulled out a legal pad. First, we change your will immediately. Currently, everything goes to Stephen. We create conditions. He inherits only if he can prove 2 years of sobriety from gambling. We set up educational trusts for Tyler and Mia that neither parent can access. We redirect a portion to charity. Louise nodded. What else? Second, I want you to document every interaction going forward. Every call, text, visit, time, date, content. Save everything. Okay. Third, we arrange for a power of attorney, someone neutral, not Stephen, in case you become incapacitated. Your sister Barbara? Yes. Fourth, James hesitated. Fourth, you should see a doctor. Get a full physical and cognitive evaluation. If they're going to claim you're mentally incompetent, we need documentation proving otherwise. Louise's blood ran cold. You think they'd do that? You just cut off their funding. Stephen has a gambling addiction. Angela's lifestyle depends on your money. Yes, Louise, I think they'll do whatever it takes to regain access to your assets. Dr. Sarah Rodriguez came highly recommended, a psychiatrist who specialized in competency evaluations for estate cases. Louise met with her on a Thursday afternoon, feeling ridiculous as she completed cognitive tests and memory exercises. Can you count backward from 100 by sevens? Who is the current president? Can you remember these 3 words? Apple, table, penny? After 2 hours of evaluation, Dr. Rodriguez set down her clipboard and smiled. Mrs. Knight, you're one of the sharpest people I've seen this month. Your cognitive function is excellent. Your memory is better than most people half your age. There's absolutely no evidence of decline. Then why did I let my son manipulate me for 3 years? The psychiatrist's expression softened. May I ask you something personal? Please. Have you been in therapy since your husband died? Louise hesitated. Yes. Rachel Williams. She's a grief counselor. I've been seeing her for 4 years. And does she have records of your sessions? I assume so. Mrs. Knight, the fact that you sought help after a devastating loss shows wisdom, not weakness. The fact that you recognized an unhealthy pattern and took action shows strength. You're not mentally incompetent. You're a grieving widow who was manipulated by people she trusted. Dr. Rodriguez paused. With your permission, I'd like to contact Ms. Williams. Her records, combined with my evaluation, would demonstrate unequivocally that you're of sound mind. Louise signed the release form. As she left the office, her phone buzzed with a text from Barbara. "Lou, 2 police officers just called me asking about you. They said Stephen requested a wellness check. What's going on?" Louise's hands started shaking. She pulled over to the side of the road and called her sister back. "They came to my house an hour ago," Barbara said. "Said your son was concerned you weren't answering calls, that you'd been acting confused and irrational. I told them I'd spoken to you this morning and you were fine, but Lou, they're going to show up at your door." "Let them come," Louise said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I have nothing to hide." The wellness check happened that evening. 2 officers, polite and professional, asked if she was okay, if she needed anything, if anyone was harming or threatening her. "I'm fine," Louise assured them. "My son and I are having a disagreement about money. I believe he called this in to harass me." The officers exchanged a glance. The older one handed her his card. "Ma'am, if you feel unsafe or if anyone threatens you, please call us." After they left, Louise sat in the dark and waited for the next move. She didn't have to wait long. The legal papers arrived by courier at 9 a.m. the next morning. Petition for emergency guardianship. Louise's hands shook as she read the document. Stephen and Angela were petitioning the court to declare her mentally incompetent and appoint Stephen as her legal guardian, with control over all her finances and medical decisions. The supporting evidence made her sick. Petitioner's mother has exhibited signs of cognitive decline, including confusion about financial matters, irrational decision-making, self-isolation from family, paranoid thinking, and baseless accusations against family members. There was a statement from Angela claiming Louise had become increasingly erratic and hostile. A statement from Patricia Vance, Angela's mother, claiming she'd observed Louise seeming confused and disoriented at Thanksgiving. Louise had never met Patricia Vance. She hadn't even been at Thanksgiving. And at the bottom, a letter from a Dr. Richard Patterson stating that based on conversations with Stephen and Angela, he had grave concerns about Mrs. Knight's cognitive function and ability to manage her affairs. Louise called James Thornton. Her voice was shaking. "They're trying to have me declared incompetent." "I know. They served me too. Louise, I need you to listen carefully. This is what we prepared for. We have Dr. Rodriguez's evaluation. We have Rachel Williams's counseling records. We have your documented financial records showing you're more competent than they are. They got a doctor to sign a letter. How did they? Dr. Patterson is a friend of someone Angela knows from the gym. He's never met you, never evaluated you. His letter is based entirely on hearsay. The judge will see through this." "Will they?" "Yes," James said firmly. "But we need to be aggressive. I'm filing our response today with all our documentation. The hearing is set for 2 weeks from now. Can you hold on that long?" Louise looked around her kitchen. Nathan's coffee mug still in the cabinet, his reading glasses still on the desk, his ghost in every corner of this house they'd built together. "I can hold on," she said. The night before the hearing, Louise couldn't sleep. She took out the box of photos from the hall closet. 35 years of Stephen's life. Stephen as a baby, round-faced and drooling. Stephen at 6, missing his front teeth. Stephen at 12, awkward and gangly. Stephen graduating college, Louise's hand on his shoulder, both of them beaming. She found one photo from his wedding. Stephen and Angela, young and hopeful, cutting the cake Louise had paid for at the reception Louise had helped fund. When had it started? When had her love become currency? When had their relationship become a transaction? Louise closed the photo album and walked to Nathan's office, pulled out the life insurance documents, the will, the investment statements, everything that represented their 40 years together, all the overtime Nathan had worked, all the careful saving and planning so she'd be taken care of. And she'd given it away, given it to a gambling addiction she'd unknowingly fed, given it to a daughter-in-law who'd faked a pregnancy to manipulate her, given it to maintain the illusion of family. But she hadn't given away everything. Not yet. And she wasn't going to. Louise picked up her phone and texted James Thornton. "I'm ready. Let's show them who they're dealing with." The reply came instantly. "That's my girl. See you at the courthouse at 9 a.m. Wear something that says competent woman who takes no prisoners." Despite everything, the fear, the betrayal, the grief, Louise smiled. She pulled out her navy suit, the one Nathan had loved, the one he said made her look like she could run the world. "Watch me, sweetheart," she whispered to his photo. "Watch me fight for us." The Cuyahoga County Courthouse smelled like floor polish and old paper. Louise sat on a wooden bench outside courtroom 4B, her navy suit pressed sharp, her hands folded in her lap to keep them from shaking. Barbara sat beside her, a solid presence, while James Thornton reviewed his notes one final time. "Remember," he said quietly, "stay calm. Answer only what's asked. Don't let them bait you into anger." Louise nodded. Through the courtroom doors, she could hear voices, the bailiff calling the room to order, chairs scraping, papers rustling. Then she saw them. Stephen and Angela emerged from a side hallway with their attorney, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit. Angela wore pearls and a modest dress, her hair pulled back, minimal makeup. She looked like someone's grieving daughter, worried about her declining mother-in-law. Stephen wouldn't meet Louise's eyes. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Evelyn Bradford." Louise stood, her knees weak. This was it. Judge Bradford was in her early 60s, with steel-gray hair and reading glasses on a chain. She reviewed the petition with an expression that gave nothing away. "This is a petition for emergency guardianship of Louise Knight, filed by her son Stephen Knight and daughter-in-law Angela Knight. Mr. Morrison, you're representing the petitioners?" Stephen's attorney stood. "Yes, Your Honor. Peter Morrison for the petitioners." "And Mr. Thornton for Mrs. Knight?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Mr. Morrison, this is your petition. Proceed." Peter Morrison was good. Louise had to give him that. He painted a picture of a declining widow, isolated and confused, making irrational financial decisions that put her future at risk. "Your Honor, the petitioners come before you not out of greed, but out of genuine concern for Mrs. Knight's well-being. Over the past 6 months, she has exhibited increasingly erratic behavior, cutting off long-time financial support to her family without explanation, making paranoid accusations, isolating herself socially." He presented their evidence. Angela's statement about Louise's hostility, Patricia Vance's claim about observed confusion, and Dr. Patterson's letter. Dr. Richard Patterson, a respected physician, has reviewed the circumstances and expressed grave concern about Mrs. Knight's cognitive state. The petitioners are not seeking to control Mrs. Knight's life, Your Honor. They simply want to ensure she doesn't harm herself financially or otherwise. Judge Bradford looked up from the documents. "Mr. Morrison, I see Dr. Patterson's letter. Has he actually examined Mrs. Knight?" Morrison hesitated. He based his assessment on detailed interviews with the petitioners who have observed. "So that's a no. He's never met her." "Your Honor, family members are often the first to notice. I'll decide what's relevant, Mr. Morrison. Continue." Morrison called Angela to testify first. Angela took the stand, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "Your Honor, I love Louise. She's been like a mother to me for 12 years, but after my father-in-law passed, she started to change. She became withdrawn, suspicious. She accused us of using her for money, which is it's heartbreaking." "Mrs. Knight," Judge Bradford said, "you are aware your mother-in-law has been providing you with substantial financial support?" "She insisted on helping us. We have 2 children, and she wanted to be involved in their lives. We never asked for the amount she gave. She just kept offering." Louise's jaw clenched. James touched her arm. "Stay calm." "And when she stopped this support?" "We were concerned. It was so sudden, so unlike her. That's when we realized something was wrong. She won't return our calls. She's cut herself off from the grandchildren. Tyler and Mia cry asking why Nana doesn't love them anymore." Judge Bradford made a note. "Mr. Knight, you'd like to testify?" Stephen stood, his movements slow. He looked thin, Louise noticed. Tired. "Your Honor, my mother was my best friend. After my father died, I tried to be there for her. We had dinner every week. We talked all the time. Then something changed. She became paranoid. accusatory. She claimed we were manipulating her, that we'd lied to her about a pregnancy. His voice cracked convincingly. We thought we were having another baby. My wife had a miscarriage. Instead of supporting us, my mother accused us of lying to manipulate her. Louise's hands gripped the armrest. James leaned over. He's lying under oath. We'll prove it. Judge Bradford studied Stephen. Mr. Knight, how much money was your mother providing you monthly? $2,000, Your Honor. Plus she helped with emergencies, medical bills, home repairs, things like that. And you're employed? Yes, Your Honor. I'm a software developer. What's your annual salary? Stephen shifted. About $65,000. And your wife works? She's in marketing. She makes about $50,000. So combined household income of $115,000 plus $2,000 a month from your mother. That's an additional $24,000 per year. Judge Bradford's tone was neutral, but Louise saw her eyes sharpen. What happened to necessitate this emergency petition? She stopped all support without warning. We have bills, a mortgage, children to care for. Mr. Knight, if your mother's support represents only 20% of your income, how does losing it constitute an emergency requiring you to control her assets? Stephen's mouth opened and closed. We're concerned about her well-being, not the money. Yet the petition seeks to have you appointed as guardian with full control of her finances, correct? To protect her from making harmful decisions. I see. Judge Bradford made another note. Mr. Morrison, do you have other witnesses? Your Honor, we can call Patricia Vance. Mrs. Vance, who claims to have observed Mrs. Knight at Thanksgiving, despite Mrs. Knight not attending that gathering. Morrison paled. There may have been a miscommunication about the date, or a fabrication. Mr. Thornton, your turn. James Thornton stood, and Louise felt a surge of gratitude for this man who'd handled Nathan's estate, who'd known her for years, who'd seen her at her worst after Nathan died and knew she was anything but incompetent. Your Honor, we have substantial evidence demonstrating Mrs. Knight's complete mental competency. First, I'd like to present Dr. Sarah Rodriguez's psychiatric evaluation, conducted last week. He handed the report to the bailiff. Judge Bradford read it, her eyebrows rising. Dr. Rodriguez evaluated Mrs. Knight for 2 hours using standardized cognitive and psychological assessments. Her findings are unequivocal. Mrs. Knight scored in the 95th percentile for her age group on cognitive function tests. Her memory, reasoning, and decision-making abilities are all well above average. Judge Bradford looked at Stephen and Angela. Their attorney was whispering urgently to them. Furthermore, James continued, Mrs. Knight has been in regular counseling with Rachel Williams, a licensed grief therapist, for the past 4 years. Ms. Williams's records, submitted with Mrs. Knight's permission, show a woman processing her husband's death in a healthy, self-aware manner, not someone experiencing cognitive decline. He presented the counseling records, then pulled out a thick folder. Your Honor, I'd also like to submit Mrs. Knight's personal financial records. She has meticulously tracked every expense, every transaction, every dollar given to her son for the past 3 years. This is not the work of someone mentally incompetent. This is the work of someone financially literate, who has, only recently, begun to question where her money has been going. James opened the folder. Over 3 years, Mrs. Knight provided her son and daughter-in-law with $186,800. The number hung in the air like a thunderclap. $186,000, James repeated. Her late husband's life insurance payout was $225,000. She has given away nearly 83% of that money to her son. Judge Bradford's expression hardened. She looked at Stephen. Mr. Knight, you claim to be concerned about your mother's finances. In 3 years, how much money have you given to her? Silence. Mr. Knight? We help with yard work sometimes. We include her in family. I asked for a dollar amount. Stephen's face flushed. We haven't given her money. We don't have extra money to give. Yet your bank records show... James pulled out another document. That you've lost $47,000 in online sports betting and poker in the past 18 months. Is that correct? The courtroom went silent. Angela's head snapped toward Stephen. What? Your Honor, Morrison stammered. I don't see how Mr. Knight's personal... I'll decide what's relevant, Judge Bradford said coldly. She looked at Stephen. Mr. Knight, do you have a gambling problem? Stephen's face crumbled. For a long moment, Louise thought he might deny it. Then his shoulders sagged. Yes, he whispered. Angela stood up. You told me it was under control. You told me it was just a few hundred... Her voice broke. 47,000? Mrs. Knight, please sit down, Judge Bradford said, not unkindly. She turned back to Stephen. And your mother's monthly payments, where did that money go? Stephen's voice was barely audible. To cover the losses. To keep Angela from finding out how bad it was. So you used your mother's money to fund a gambling addiction. I was going to pay her back. I was going to get it under control. By having her declared incompetent and taking control of her remaining assets? Stephen's silence was answer enough. Judge Bradford turned to Angela. Miss Knight, you told this court you were pregnant and suffered a miscarriage. Is that true? Angela's face went white. There was a misunderstanding. Yes or no, Mrs. Knight? Were you pregnant? Tears streamed down Angela's face. No. You lied to your mother-in-law about a pregnancy to manipulate her into giving you money? We were desperate. James Thornton stepped forward. Your Honor, we have documentation that Mrs. Angela Knight underwent a tubal ligation 8 months ago. She told her mother-in-law she was pregnant, knowing it was medically impossible. Judge Bradford removed her glasses. The look she gave Stephen and Angela could have frozen fire. Mr. Morrison, I've seen enough. Your clients have presented fabricated evidence, committed perjury, and attempted to gain control of a competent woman's assets through fraud. Does the defense wish to call any witnesses? Your Honor, we'd like to call Mrs. Knight herself. Louise stood on shaking legs and walked to the witness stand. She placed her hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. James approached gently. Mrs. Knight, can you explain why you stopped providing financial support to your son? Louise looked at Stephen, really looked at him. He was crying now, silent tears running down his face. I realized I was enabling him, she said quietly. I thought I was being a good mother. I thought I was honoring my husband's memory by taking care of our son. But I was hurting him. I was making it possible for him to avoid facing his problems. Do you love your son, Mrs. Knight? Louise's voice broke. More than he knows. That's why I had to do this. She turned to Stephen directly. Your father would want you to stand on your own feet. I failed you by not teaching you that sooner, but I'm teaching you now. Judge Bradford watched this exchange, her expression softening slightly. Mrs. Knight, do you believe you're mentally competent to manage your own affairs? Yes, Your Honor. Do you understand the financial decisions you've made? Yes, Your Honor. I understand them completely. Judge Bradford nodded. Step down. She reviewed her notes for a long moment. The courtroom was silent except for Angela's muffled crying. I'm denying this petition, Judge Bradford said finally. Mrs. Louise Knight is clearly of sound mind. This appears to be a transparent attempt by adult children to gain control of their mother's finances because she chose to stop enabling their poor financial decisions. She looked at Stephen and Angela. I'm ordering you to reimburse Mrs. Knight's legal fees. That's $12,000. Furthermore, if either of you contact Mrs. Knight regarding financial matters, I will consider it harassment and grounds for a restraining order. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, they whispered. Mrs. Knight, Judge Bradford turned to Louise, her voice gentler. I'm sorry you had to go through this. You deserve better from your family. Thank you, Your Honor. As the bailiff called the next case, Louise walked out of the courtroom on Barbara's arm. Behind her, she heard Angela's voice, sharp and accusing. You told me it was under control. Louise didn't look back. The days after the hearing passed in a blur. Louise slept for 12 hours straight, then woke up feeling lighter than she had in years. The legal fees notice arrived for Stephen and Angela, $12,000 due within 30 days. She heard through church gossip that they'd separated. that Angela had moved in with her mother, that Stephen was sleeping in his office. Louise felt no satisfaction in it, only a deep, abiding sadness. Then, 3 weeks later, a letter arrived, handwritten on plain paper in Stephen's familiar scrawl. "Dear Mom, I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect forgiveness. But I need you to know the truth, even if it's too late. I started gambling 2 years ago. It started small. $20 on a football game, $50 on poker night with friends. I won some. It felt good. It felt like control, like I was smart enough to beat the system. Then I lost, and I chased the losses, and I lied to Angela, and I lied to you. Every time you gave me money, I told myself it was temporary, that one big win would fix everything. But it never did. The guardianship was Angela's idea, but I went along with it because I was desperate, because I'd drained our savings and I was terrified she'd leave me and I couldn't face what I'd become. I was wrong. About everything. I'm in Gamblers Anonymous now, 3 weeks sober. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. Angela's in therapy. We're separated, but she's letting me see Tyler and Mia on weekends. I told them what I did, age appropriately, but honestly. I told them that Daddy made very bad choices and hurt Nana, and that's why we can't see her right now. Tyler asked if you still love us. I said yes, because I believe you do, even though I don't deserve it. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking for anything. But I needed you to know you were right about all of it. You loved me enough to say no, and it saved my life. If you ever want to see Tyler and Mia, I will bring them to you. No Angela, no manipulation, no strings, just your grandchildren who miss their Nana. I'm trying to be the man Dad raised me to be. I know I'm not there yet. I love you, Mom. I'm sorry. Stephen." Louise read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. Then she called Barbara. "He's in GA," Louise said. "He's actually trying." "What are you going to do?" Louise looked at the letter, at her son's familiar handwriting, at the words, "I love you, Mom." "I'm going to call James Thornton," she said. "And then I'm going to call Rachel. And then I think I'm going to see my grandchildren." The park on a Saturday morning in March was cold but sunny. Louise sat on a bench near the playground, Barbara beside her for moral support. Her hands were shaking. "You don't have to do this if you're not ready," Barbara said. "I am ready. I think." Then she saw them, Stephen's Accord pulling into the parking lot. Tyler and Mia tumbled out of the back seat, bundled in winter coats. They looked around, uncertain. Then Tyler saw her. "Nanum," he ran across the grass, Mia following, and Louise stood to catch them as they crashed into her arms. She held them tight, breathing in their child smell of shampoo and playground dirt and innocence. "I missed you so much," Mia said into her coat. "I missed you too, sweetheart. So much." Stephen stayed by the car, keeping his distance. Louise looked up and met his eyes across the playground. He looked thinner, older, but there was something different in his face, something raw and honest that hadn't been there before. She nodded to him. He nodded back. For 2 hours, Louise pushed Mia on the swings and watched Tyler navigate the monkey bars. They told her about school, about Tyler's new teacher, about Mia's lost tooth. They asked her why she'd been gone, and Louise said simply, "Daddy and I had some grown-up problems to work through, but I never stopped loving you." "Did Daddy do something bad?" Tyler asked, his 8-year-old perception sharper than she'd expected. Louise looked at Stephen, who'd moved closer but still maintained a respectful distance. "Daddy made some mistakes," Louise said carefully, "but he's working very hard to fix them, and that's very brave." When it was time to go, Mia hugged her tight. "Can we see you again next week?" Louise looked at Stephen. He nodded. "Yes," Louise said, "next week, same time." After the children got in the car, Stephen approached. He stopped a few feet away. "Thank you," he said. His voice was hoarse. "I know I don't deserve—" "Stephen," Louise kept her voice steady. "I'm doing this for them, not for you, but I'm watching. If you stay in GA, if you do the work, if you earn back their trust, we'll see. I understand. I'm 4 weeks sober as of yesterday. Good. Keep going. He nodded and started to turn away. Then Louise spoke again. Stephen, your father would be proud that you're trying. I am too. He broke down then, actual sobs that shook his whole body. Louise didn't move to comfort him. Some pain had to be felt to be healed. I'll see you next Saturday, she said, and walked to Barbara's car. 6 months later, Louise sat at her kitchen table on a warm September afternoon. James Thornton had just left after reviewing the final version of her new will. The terms were clear. The house would go to Stephen, but only after he maintained 2 years of documented sobriety from gambling. Tyler and Mia each received $50,000 educational trusts, accessible at age 25, with no parental access. The remaining $150,000 would be split, 40% to Stephen, conditional on sobriety, 30% added to the grandchildren's trusts, and 30% to a gambling addiction charity. In Nathan's name, Louise had shown Stephen a copy that morning during their weekly Saturday park visit. He'd cried reading it. You still believe in me. I believe in who you can become, Louise had said. But you have to do the work. Now, as evening fell, Louise prepared for something she hadn't done in almost a year. Hosted her own birthday dinner. The doorbell rang at 6. Barbara arrived with her family. Rachel Williams came with a bottle of wine. James Thornton brought flowers. And then, tentatively, came Stephen with Tyler and Mia. No Angela, they were still separated, still working through their own issues. But Stephen was here, 7 months sober, carrying a wrapped package. Happy birthday, Mom, he said quietly. Louise opened the gift. A photo album he'd made himself. Pictures of Nathan. Pictures of Louise with Tyler and Mia over the past 6 months. And on the last page, a photograph of Stephen's 7-month GA chip, mounted with a handwritten note. Thank you for loving me enough to say no. I'm becoming the man you and Dad raised me to be. It's the longest journey I've ever taken, and I'm just at the beginning, but I'm walking it sober. Stephen, Louise touched the photo, tears blurring her vision. They gathered around her table, smaller than the family dinners she'd once imagined, but real in a way those had never been. Barbara made her famous lasagna. James told terrible lawyer jokes. Rachel led them in an embarrassing birthday song. Tyler and Mia made her cards. Tyler's showing her pushing him on the swings. Mia's featuring a rainbow, and the words I love Nana in shaky letters. As Louise cut the cake, she looked around her table at the people who'd shown up for her. Not because they needed her money, but because they valued her presence. Stephen caught her eye. What did you wish for, Mom? Louise looked at him, at the circles still under his eyes, at the weight of recovery he carried, at the man he was becoming. It already came true, she said. Later, after everyone had left and the dishes were washed and the house was quiet again, Louise stood in Nathan's old office. She'd finally started redecorating it, turning it from a shrine into a space she could use. His desk remained, but now it held her watercolor supplies, her books, evidence of a life she was building. She pulled out her journal, the one Rachel had encouraged her to keep, and wrote, I don't know if Stephen will stay sober. I don't know if Angela will change, or if their marriage will survive. I don't know if our family will ever be what I once dreamed it would be. But I know I'm not responsible for fixing them. I know I can love them without destroying myself. I know Nathan would be proud, not of what happened, but of how I survived it. She closed the journal and looked at Nathan's photo on the shelf. I'm okay, sweetheart, she whispered. It took me a while, but I'm okay. Tomorrow, Tyler had a soccer game. Stephen had asked if she wanted to come. She'd said yes. Tomorrow, Rachel had invited her to join a hiking group, other widows and widowers finding their way forward. Tomorrow, Barbara wanted to start planning their trip to Ireland. Tomorrow stretched ahead, full of possibility and uncertainty in equal measure. But tonight, Louise climbed into bed and slept soundly. No nightmares, no 3 a.m. spreadsheets, no wondering what she'd done wrong. Just peace. And in the morning, when she woke to September sunlight streaming through her window, Louise Knight smiled. She'd learned the cost of love. And she'd learned, finally, that love without boundaries wasn't love at all. It was just loss, dressed up in sacrifice. Real love, the kind Nathan had taught her, the kind she was teaching Stephen now. Real love sometimes meant saying no, and that was okay.